Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about the difference between logic models and theories of change. And I thought this was an interesting topic because being in the higher education space and operating in the social impact sector, I don't really hear a lot of people talk about theories of change models. A lot of organizations focus on the logic models, so I thought it would be cool to just talk about the difference between both and some high points that you guys may want to know when it comes to if a logic model or if a theory of change is necessary for your organization's needs. So we're going to begin by giving a brief overview of what a logic model is, what a theory of change is, and then highlight some of the differences between the two. So a logic model in a high level context focuses more on the operational activities to maximize outcomes and hit those impact areas that an organization is wanting to achieve. So in a logic model, most leaders focus on the activities, the inputs, which are the resources that are necessary for these activities to be successful, and then focus on specific outcomes and outputs that are necessary to reach the maximum impact. You can go a step further by also focusing on evaluative methods. So you're just highlighting what are the forms of evaluation that we want to engage in to see how successful our program is. And you can also talk about what are some assumptions that you guys should consider as you're going into different activities. At the high level, both the logic model and the theory of change focuses on how do we maximize these outcomes, these outputs to hit those impacts. But logic models focuses on the operational activities that are necessary to get these things done. And the theory of change is saying, why are these activities necessary? What is the systems that we will be affecting to make that positive impact? And in theories of change, leaders also focus on contextual factors. So who are your threats? Who are your competitors? Who are people that you can partner with? What are some policies and different things that may hinder or support the work that you are trying to do? So a theory of change, again, gets more at the root of how to make systemic impact, whereas a logic model can do that, focus on systemic impact, but typically logic models focus on the more operational activities that are necessary to achieve specific outcomes and make maximum impact. So in most logic model templates, you'll see 4 components: the inputs, the activities, the outputs, and the outcomes. And the inputs are literally any resource that you or your organization think is necessary to achieve a specific activity. So an example of an input can be volunteers, financial in-kind donations, tech support, anything that you think will be necessary to achieve the specific activity that you are looking for. Activities are any, as stated, activities that your organization is wanting to engage in. So you guys can host a campaign for engaging with your donors. You can host a gala to raise funds for your project or program. You can engage in specific programmatic activities for your stakeholders or for your program participants to bring more awareness or impact to a specific group of individuals. An outcome are measurable goals that your activities are intending to achieve. So if you guys are looking to lead a program for populations that are food insecure, an outcome could be, we want X amount of participants to understand how to cook healthy meals, understand where resources are for them to get nutritional meals and ingredients and things of that nature. Outcomes can be short-term, long-term, or intermediate. Sometimes logic model templates only have, outcomes as one chart, but now more developed charts allow you to put, more short-term, intermediate, and long-term outcomes, depending again on the needs of the organization and things that you guys are wanting to achieve. And then your outputs. Your outputs are simply measurable goals that correlate to the organization's intended outcomes. So outputs, if you look at it from the simplest term, are measurable, immediate impact that you are expected to see, whereas outcomes can be more long-term. So you may not see, specific results with an outcome maybe until a year after post-program completion, whereas with an output you can see that immediate impact maybe within 4 to 6 months. So I want to give a specific example to distinguish the difference between an output and an outcome. Say that you have a nonprofit or a program that focuses on workforce development for the elderly, so populations that are, I'm going to say, 70 plus. An outcome could be the elderly or an elderly participant is able to understand how to build their resume, how to write a cover letter, how to engage in interview tips and strategies so that they can land a job. A long-term outcome could be that same program participant landing a job post program completion. So you could say we want X amount of program participants to land a job within 6 months to a year. So the difference again is your outcomes are more long-term, whereas your outputs can be short-term, immediate things that your organization sees as you are engaging with program participants. As I stated earlier, some logic model templates do include the assumptions and then an evaluation design. Again, the evaluation design does not have to be very detailed, but you do need to have an understanding of how you guys are planning to evaluate your programs to ensure that you guys are making maximum impact. Your assumptions are anything that can be a threat or a hindrance, or can be an advantage that you can leverage as you are engaging with specific communities. So for example, when you are looking to initiate an activity, what other nonprofits in your area are engaging in these same activities? Is your activity or program necessary? What can you do to distinguish yourself? Can you serve a different population that has not been served in your area? Can you provide a specific set of resources that can segment to a maybe small group of people, but it can make a greater impact on those groups of individuals? So assumptions and your evaluation plan can also be included in your logic model, but again, I've seen at the basic level, most logic models have your inputs, your activities, your outputs, and your outcome. So there are 3 components to a theory of change model. You have your assumptions, you have your strategies or activities, and you have your outcomes. And your assumptions are focusing on the specific issues in a community, region, or area that you are wanting to focus on. So you can focus on racial injustice, gender inequality, vulnerable populations such as the elderly or children that are in abusive homes or households. And under those areas, what specifically are you looking to change? So are you wanting to provide resources to victims of domestic violence? Are you wanting to provide support in the legal system for Black and brown people that may have been dealt with unjustly? There are so many angles and ways for you to look at this, but it's important for you to focus specifically on what it is that you are wanting to target at its root. You have your strategies and your activities, which, as the names delineate, these are specific things that you or your organization are planning to engage in to tackle these issues. And again, there should be a systems change approach. So these should be focusing more on those long-term activities so that you can maximize the most impact. And as similar to the outcomes of a logic model, the outcomes of a theory of change focuses on the intended outcome and impact that you or your organization is looking to see from your program participants. And these can be short-term, intermediate, or long-term, depending on how your organization is measuring outcomes for your program participants. I would take it a step further to say you can also include an evaluation plan for the theory of change model. So how are you planning to evaluate the activities? How are you planning to measure specific things related to your area of interest? And then focusing on how are you measuring assumptions, or how can you measure, if the root issue is being tackled under the assumption. And this can be very difficult to measure. A lot of the work that is done at a systems level isn't always an input to an output, cannot always be quantified, but in some ways you can track to see how many program participants are being influenced and impacted by the work that you or your organization is doing. So now that we have talked about what is a logic model, what is a theory of change, and focused on the components of a logic model, we focus on the components of a theory of change. Now we're going to talk about when it may be useful to use one or the other. Based on the information that I've provided, you can see that there is a lot of overlapping between the logic model and the theories of change model. But again, the biggest difference between the two is that logic models focus more on operational impact, whereas a theories of change model focuses more on systemic changes within a specific area of expertise, or tackling a root issue that you or your organization is looking to solve. So when it comes to determining when you may want to use a logic model or a theory of change, I want to start off by saying you can use both. If you have enough time, you can focus on a theory of change if you know that there is a root issue that you are looking to tackle. I do want to caution you though, theories of change do take a little bit longer to really engage with because it's a lot of work that is involved, and it is the same for a logic model. But again, because you are focusing on root things, you may want to bring in other stakeholders that are focusing on the same thing, that have expertise from different angles of targeting or tackling this specific issue that you're looking to achieve. And so if you know that you're short on time, short on resources and human capital to help you navigate this, you may want to wait to focus on a theory of change. A logic model is something that I believe personally every organization should engage in. How in detail or broad you want to be is up to you, but I think that a logic model is a great display at a high level of the activities that your organization is wanting to engage in. And so if you're wanting to focus on operational effectiveness, and reviewing why a program is or isn't really being successful, you can look at, okay, what inputs do we have? What activities do we need to refine or maybe let go of? Let's revisit the immediate outputs that we are looking to see from our program participants, and how we measuring those short, intermediate, and long-term outcomes. So again, both are very valuable for your organization or your program, but depending on the scenario, one may be preferable over the other. And another thing that I want to talk about when it comes to determining if a logic model or a theory of change is best suited for your organization is looking at where you in your stage of development. If you are up and running and you have multiple programs that are in place, you may want to focus on a logic model. You may want to see, how effective your programs are. If you see that there is areas of gap that you can improve on, then maybe a logic model could be beneficial for you. If you're wanting to revamp one of your programs, you can still engage with a theory of change and work backwards to looking at the outcomes and then focusing on the strategies and the activities based on those outcomes, and then what assumptions do you need to look at regarding the root issue and conditions maybe within your community or within your region that you are looking to support. If you are in beginner stages, you are doing a lot of heavy lifting on the front end. And if you are a solo, social sector inspiree, then you may not have as many resources. So a logic model is always a good foundation for new social sector leaders because, again, it's an easy, high level diagram that shows what type of activities that you are wanting to engage in, and the goal based on the name is for one to be a ripple effect of the other. So your inputs should be directly connected to your activities. Your activities should be directly connected to your outputs, and your outputs should be directly connected to your outcomes, and the same thing for your theory of change. But the difference with the theory of change, again, is that you are able to work backwards and focus more on the systems that needs to be changed, the assumptions, the assumptions that needs to be tackled in the specific area that you are working to solve. So in today's video, I just want to do a recap. We talked about what a logic model is, what a theory of change is, the difference between the two, different components that are within a logic model and within a theory of change. And I also talked about when are good times for you or your organization to utilize a logic model or a theory of change template. Again, there is a lot of overlap between these two, but they are both useful and can be very effective organizations at pretty much any stage of development. You just utilize which one you want to based on where you are with your programs and getting established and things of that nature. I have created a template for you guys. I have created a logic model template as well as a theory of change template that is free. These are very basic, but I wanted to give you guys something tangible that you could work with as you are building out your programs. I'll also link in my description box some other PDFs and resources that I found online to be very helpful with distinguishing the difference between a logic model and a theory of change. But I just wanted this video to be very rudimentary in the information between the two, because you can really go down a rabbit hole when it comes to a logic model and definitely a theory of change. So I wish you all well as you are on your journey to becoming world changers. Until next time, try to make the world a better place today.